Today my dilemma is I have some whole tomatoes that I canned from 2008 that need to be used. We haven't been using them for anything, so what I'm going to do is turn them into a spicy tomato basil soup and can that. Even though Frank is not a big fan of tomatoes, I love them, and tomatoes and basil go perfectly together. I'm going to use the 4 quarts of tomatoes. They have been skinned. They weren't cored. They do have the seeds in them still, and I'll try to get as many of them as I can out at the end, but I'm not too worried about the seeds being in it. 3½ cups of onions chopped, 2½ cups of celery chopped, 2 red bell peppers chopped, 1 cup of carrots sliced, peeled and sliced, 3 to 4 cloves of garlic chopped, 4 to 5 tablespoons of dried basil. If you have fresh basil around, that's great. I happen to have some basil that I dried from my garden this year that I'm going to use. And then 4 to 5 dried Thai peppers. Once again, if you have fresh ones, that's great. I have some that I dried from the garden that I'm going to use. And those I basically just cut the stems off and cut them in half just to get the spiciness mixed into the soup. And we're going to need 1 cup of brown sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. As you can see, I have everything all chopped up and ready to go. All the parts from the vegetables that I didn't use for the soup, I put in this bag with the exception of the onion and garlic skins. This I'm going to use to make a vegetable stock with, and we'll pressure can that too. Here's one of the quart jars of tomatoes I canned. You can see there's some yellow ones in there. That's because I had grown heirloom tomatoes that year. That was probably like a yellow brandy wine or something. When you're using your canned items, you have to make sure that you still have a good seal on them, because you don't want to make yourself sick. So that's what you want to hear, is that pop when you open it up. Check everything, make sure it looks good. Those still look pretty tasty. They're going to make fabulous soup. And what we do first is add all the ingredients with the exception of the salt and sugar. Into our Dutch oven. So tomatoes, carrots, Thai peppers, basil, garlic, onions, red bell peppers, celery, now we'll mix it all up and we'll put it on the stove and simmer it until all the vegetables are good and tender. Now our tomato soup has come to a boil, so I'll go ahead and turn it down and let it simmer for probably 15-20 minutes. Let all the flavors marry together and the vegetables become tender. Our soup is simmering nicely, so we're going to go ahead and wash our pint jars. When you're pressure canning, you don't have to sterilize them, but once they're washed in soapy water, you do need to keep them submerged in the water until you're ready to use them. So that's what we'll do next. Alright, the soup's been cooking for about an hour. All the veggies are nice and tender. All the flavors are all blended together. So the next thing we're going to do is blend it with our little bullet blender. I'm going to cheat this time because I haven't bought a food mill yet, and I intend to do that. But you can put it in a blender, food processor, or one of the little hand blenders, which is what I'm going to use to blend it all up. Alright, I have the generator on, so we'll show you how this is done. It's our little hand blender. Just do that until it's all blended nice and smooth, and I'll do that and I'll be back. Now the vegetables are all pureed, so we're going to add the brown sugar, cup of brown sugar, and salt to taste. This is about 2 teaspoons. We'll mix it all in, then we'll bring it to a simmer and let it simmer for 15 more minutes or so. And in that time, I'm going to get the pressure cooker ready. We're getting ready to pressure can our soup, tomato soup. I have 6 jars ready to go in hot water. I'm expecting to use 4 of them, but we could use 6. I also have my water heating up to go into the canner. This is 2 quarts of water. You want to add hot water to your pressure canner. So it's according to the chart, since we're using pints and a 12-quart pressure canner, you want 2 quarts of water in the canner plus an extra pint if you're not going to use the full capacity, which we are not going to today. So this is 2 quarts and 1 pint of water. These charts are available in your instruction manual for your pressure canner, or you can get them online. It's important not to add too much water, otherwise you can blow the lid off. And if you don't add enough, then you don't get the pressure that you need. Our canner's ready. Has the rack down on the bottom. So I'll show you how it's done. We have our hot jar that I just pulled out of the hot water. A little in the soup, given about an inch of head space. A little tiny bit more. Okay, so we have about an inch of head space, which is from the top of the soup to the top of the jar. Use our spatula to get any air bubbles out. Wipe it down, make sure we get a good seal. Put on our lid and our ring, tighten it down. Well, it made more than I expected, so not only did I fill all the pint jars, but I also filled a quart jar. So we're only going to need the 2 quarts of hot water in the pressure canner. Once I filled them up, I stuck them back into the warm water to keep them hot. So I'm going to transfer them to the pressure canner. And after I'm done with that, I'll be back. I've removed a pint of the hot water. So we'll go ahead and dump that in. And we'll put the lid on. Make sure it's locked shut. And we want to cook this at 10 pounds of pressure. So you find the 10-pound mark, put that on your vent pen. Then we'll fire it up and let it get to boiling. We'll get it to start venting steam at 3 or 4 vents per minute, and then we'll process it for 20 minutes. Now our pressure cooker is up to temperature, and it should jiggle 3 to 4 times a minute, so we know it's up to 10 pounds of pressure. just like that. Alright, the soup has been processing for 20 minutes, so we're going to remove it from the heat and let it cool down slowly. If you remove the pressure from the canner too fast, what you do is change the pressure in the canner faster than the pressure in the jars, and that can cause problems. So we'll just let it cool down slowly. Alright, we've let it cool down. Took the lid off. This is what they look like. They're even still boiling. So we're going to pull them out of here and put them on a towel to cool down. Then we'll put the date and what they are on them and put them away for tomato soup time.